My name is VanDyke, and I breed morning geckos, springtails, isopods, fish, and now I have starry night reed frogs. I plan on getting more small exotic animal creatures in the future, and I breed them and sell them to places like Animal City, Aquatic Critter in Nashville, and I'm looking to venture out into other areas in Middle Tennessee or even West and East Tennessee. Breeding the guppies has always been interesting because you start off with a few and you end up with hundreds. And right now, I have one that I call the Targaryens because um, I've been breeding them for so long that they finally are doing what I want them to do as terms of genetic expression. I have several guppies that are in there, and they look uh, very flamboyant in terms of color. One of them has what's called a flame tail, and I think he's really interesting to look at. But I have him basically in there with his sisters, and yeah, you can kind of see why I call them the Targaryens. But I have what's called a muck tank where I put all of the undesirable fish from my breeding projects, and they breed in there with each other, and they look really interesting. I got some really cool things coming out of there, and I also have the morning geckos. They breed through what's called parthenogenesis. That just means they clone themselves. They are all actually female, and they do what's called female to female copulation. They essentially just bite each other, and that stimulates the process of parthenogenesis, which ends up with usually two fertile eggs plastered onto usually the side of whatever enclosure they're in, or the top, or something arboreal or upwards in the tank. And then I also have the Starry Night reed frogs, and I'm planning on letting them grow out, get babies from them, and then essentially just keep growing my numbers up, and then start being a wholesale supplier to pet shops in Tennessee. And I also breed isopods. I started out with zebra isopods, and that allowed me to slowly, through about 4 years, breed them and eventually get to the point where I have a lot of isopods that are zebras, and I can sell them and make enough money to order other isopods. And now I have about 19 different varieties of isopods. Most of them are just different morphs, but I basically have I think 24 containers of isopods. I also breed springtails and sell them to Animal City as well. My goal for this business is obviously to not work at where I am now, and I actually want to recreate what's called a home zoo, where I take a lot of the critters that I have now and things I will get later on, and basically recreate their natural environment, put them in their natural environment, and basically just show people how to keep these animals. Very low maintenance animals. A lot of these animals are low maintenance, and you don't necessarily need to do a whole lot, especially if they're living in a naturalistic enclosure. They're true expressions of like how their behavior is kind of comes out, and you get to kind of see that in these naturalistic enclosures. And one more thing I would like to do is I would like to do some conservation work. I know in Middle Tennessee, turtles typically are declining. A lot of people are running them over by accident, or some people on purpose. And we're losing those in the wild. So eventually, once I get enough money and get some land, I would like to build a small turtle sanctuary where I can basically go collect these turtles and breed them in this sanctuary, and then release little pods of them throughout different places in Middle Tennessee.